You know, this is a business about ratings, and when the ratings don't work, they make changes.
And CBS is about to make the biggest change yet with this program. When I look at all of this, and I've been reporting on the saga going on between CBS and Gayle King now for over a year, when I look at all the stuff they've done to get her to just go, and she won't, when I heard the latest, I said, aha, this is CBS's last-ditch effort to get this woman out the door. Because they know if they just flat out fire her, that's going to be a shitstorm. So they don't want to do that. And so they've been trying to push her out. And if you stay with me, I'm going to give you a list of all the things that they've done. I used to work in HR. These things are very, very common. Listen, I think sometimes people think that if you're on the level that Gayle King is, that the techniques that the Human Resource Department uses to get you out the door are different. But I'm going to tell you something, they are the exact same. Because no matter what company it is, all Human Resource Departments are pretty much set up the same. I mean, there have been very few changes in that industry, okay, since it started. And so the techniques, they don't change. They're pretty much the same. And you want to know why they're the same? Because they actually work. But Gayle is a little bit different. And so stay with me. We're going to go through all of that. Now, I will tell you that I am coming back with 2 other podcasts on this. I want to isolate each thing on its own. I want to talk about on the next episode why Gayle won't leave, why she's making them do all of this, because Gayle ain't no fool and she's very smart. We'll go into that on a separate podcast. Then I'm going to be talking about on another podcast what really is the root of the beef between Norah O'Donnell and Gayle. And there is a beef. It's not like what they say, which is, oh, they do this in entertainment all the time. They want 2 powerful women to just fight. And so they make up lies that they don't get along. They make up lies that they're catty. Well, some of that stuff is lies, but I'm going to tell you on that other podcast, this right here is real. These 2 really don't like each other. But let's get to what you came here for. So for those of you who don't know, here's the latest, okay? About 3 weeks ago, Nielsen Ratings, the company, Nielsen rather, who handles all the ratings and all that stuff, they came out with the latest ratings for CBS Mornings. Remember, it was CBS This Mornings, but they changed the name to just CBS Mornings. And those ratings show that in the history of this program, and this program came on in the 1980s, the ratings were the lowest they have ever been. But for people who study the ratings when they trace it back, and Gayle came in 2012, since Gayle has been there, according to them, the ratings have been steadily declining until they are where they are now. And the reason that people are blaming the terrible ratings on Gayle is because she's the only consistent co-host in the last, since 2012. When the program was revamped in 2012, it was her, Charlie Rose, and a lady named Erica. Well, Erica left and they replaced Erica with Norah O'Donnell. Norah was there for 7 years before they promoted her to anchoring CBS Evening News, which she did, I think, for 5 or 6 years. Okay, now Tony DeCopel is over there, and we're going to talk about him on a different podcast, because that's a whole story, because that was a whole setup with Tony that they did, which was low, but they wanted him gone, okay? But now let's get back to Gayle. So since Gayle has been there, as I said, she's been the consistent person. And so, listen, we can't blame it on different things. And yeah, I agree with some people. There may be other reasons that the ratings have just been so poor, but a lot of people just don't find Gayle interesting. She was interesting depending on who her co-hosts were. But when she is the most interesting person in the group of people who, some of those folks they didn't even really know, like Nate Burleson, they didn't really know, and so on, it's just difficult. It makes it more difficult, okay? And so now the latest is this. Since those ratings came out 3 weeks ago, now we've learned from Oliver Darcy, who's a journalist, that insiders at CBS have told him, and by the way, he's not a gossip journalist. He's a real bona fide journalist. They've told him that they're in talks with Norah O'Donnell to return her to the program because allegedly it was because of Gayle that they even moved her in the first place. So I'm going to tell you something. This is going to be a full circle moment for Norah. And if it really was true that it was Gayle that kind of encouraged them to kick her to the curb and to get her off of the morning news and send her over there to the evening news. This is going to be exactly the karma that Gayle should get. Okay, now let's go through the list of things that they've been trying all over the past year and a half to get this lady to just go. So I will tell y'all, if they offer Nora the right amount of money, she's coming, because she's still a CBS employee. So it's not like they're bringing her from ABC or NBC. She still works for them. I mean, she was doing really good on on 60 Minutes. And so if they bring her back, right, we'll know that they said, this right here will get Gayle to go. So the first thing that they did to get Gayle out the door was they simply began to change her co-host. One of the things about Gayle, and how we know this is Gayle has said this, she's been very open. Gayle doesn't like change. She thrives on consistency and structure. And so the very first thing you will find that will happen in human resources is if they know you're that kind of person, they will simply either start moving you around or they will move people around you. Okay? And that creates an instability. It creates irritation, frustration, because new people have to learn their roles. They have to learn, not to mention you have to readjust. Now you were used to Nora's, I'm going to give that example, Nora's personality. Now you got to get used to someone else's personality. And a lot of people don't really like that. And even though Gayle is a people person, she's always said that she hates change. Well, moving people around and around her, that didn't work. She still stayed. The next thing they tried, which is very common in entertainment and in this business that she's in, they started leaking negative stories about her. When they started leaking those stories last year, and I saw the way she responded, I said, this woman is smart. She knows exactly what they're doing. Because every single time Gayle was caught out somewhere, or even if she was on a program that she was scheduled to be on, every single time someone asked her about those negative stories, she had the exact same answer. I said, Gayle has created a script for herself. She would say the same thing. You know what? From what I'm hearing, they love what I'm doing, and I love my job. Because here's the point of negative stories, for those of you who don't know. By the way, I learned this from Barbara Walters. I learned it because Barbara Walters, when she left The View, she gave many interviews, and she finally admitted that she used to leak stories on people at The View that she wanted to get fired. That's how she would do it. She would leak the stories. But the purpose of the leaked negative story is to get a reaction out of the person. Because here's the deal. Depending on what a person says, or in our day, tweets, or Instagrams, or whatever, they may say the wrong thing that actually violates their contract. It's kind of like what happened with Terry Moran at NBC, okay? When they fired him because he did a tweet and he claimed he was drunk. That was his way of trying to get out of it. I was drunk. But his tweet went against the clauses that he had in his contract with NBC. So that's the purpose. Leak such negative stories that the person says something, that Gayle says something, because TMZ would be waiting on Gayle, right? The reporters would be waiting on her when she's coming off her plane at LAX, catch her when she's tired. And you best believe that some of these people were sent by Barry Weiss and the other folk in the C-suite at CBS. They wanted to catch her anytime she was off her game. But whether her wig was intact or not, Gayle had the same answer. So I said, okay, they can't get her that way. She's not going to say nothing because she knows they're waiting for her to say something. The next thing that they tried is they simply tried to cut her pay. They did cut her pay. So when her contract came up for renewal last May, this past May of 2026, they cut her pay. And well, most people, okay, will say, I'm out of here. I mean, that's what happened with NBC and Hoda Kotb. Now, Hoda's back over there for way less money. By the way, we're going to talk about that too, because it's like, Hoda, you made a big deal out of nothing. Hoda was making, allegedly, upwards to $20 million, okay? And then they offered her, during her renewal, $12 million. And she said, not gonna do it. That ain't enough money for me. And so she made up a lie. I'm gonna spend more time with my girls. I'm gonna just go home and now, I mean, she's been itching to get back. They said even before they brought her back, okay? And even though she's not back in a full-time capacity, it was a perfect storm, with her wanting to get back, the whole thing happening with the Guthrie case and all of that. And so she's over there. But the bottom line is they cut her pay, and guess what? Gayle still signed that contract. She said, I don't care if they cut my pay. I ain't going nowhere. And now, as I said, they're making their last ditch effort. They're bringing back the one woman who she had a difficult time working with, and that's Norah O'Donnell. Now, here's the thing. Gayle is 71. Nora's 52. I think what they're ultimately going to work towards is Norah replacing Gayle, and I think Gayle knows that. I mean, Norah is younger. Norah, she, a lot of people like her. A lot of people feel like she's really good. Gayle is really good. But Gayle, Gayle, let me just say it this way. Gayle is old school in a lot of ways. And, a lot of times when people are old school, they have a difficult time with the changing of the guard. They have a difficult time with the changing of processes and things of that nature. So as I get ready to let you go, because again, we're going to be back together where we're going to be talking about why Gayle won't leave. And we're going to be talking about, the root of this whole thing. Because when Norah gets on that set, I'm telling you guys, the leaks are going to be coming. And I will tell you, I think Norah's going to be in on it because Norah leaked stories on a guy before at CBS whose job that she wanted. So she's not going to be new to it. That's one of the things that she's done allegedly. So at the end of the day, do I think that Gayle should just read the writing on the wall and get the heck out of Dodge? Of course I do, but she should have done that a long time ago. But here's the thing, for Gayle, this ain't about money. Now, as I let you go, I'll be back, and we'll be talking about, if it's not about money, what exactly is it about for Gayle? I'll tell you on the next episode. Bye, guys.